this is gonna come as a shock to some of the people watching this, and even some of y'all, it's gonna like make your blood boil, especially if you've never been to Minnesota, and probably even more so if you frequently watch the news and TV in general. But for some of y'all, especially people who have just relocated here or recently visited, you're gonna intuit a lot of this, which is that Minnesota is ranked among the lowest stress states in the country by, honestly, a pretty healthy margin. And this study was done by WalletHub, and I think they've done a really good job on it. They've done it for several years now. But to me, it's so much more than the data points or the criteria that they studied. I think it's just built into the way of life. It's built into the fabric and the culture that has existed since the beginning of Minnesota. So in this video, like every video I do, by the way, I'm gonna do my best to show you and not just tell you, why is Minnesota so chill? Why, for all of its faults, is Minnesota such an awesome place to live? And you know, in the spirit of the video, I'm gonna take my time with it.
What's up, buddy? What's up, buddy?
My fiance found this restaurant, this specific sandwich at a restaurant that she is obsessed with. It's called Cafe Marguerite, and there's like a tuna sandwich that she's like, this is the best sandwich I've ever had in my life. So the shop just happens to be right by it. I'm gonna start the day. I'm gonna get her that sandwich, and maybe I'll drop Oscar off with her, but I don't know. I might come along for the rest of the day. Take me to Cafe Marguerite.
Getting directions to Cafe Marguerite.
Real quick, I have to check the Ring cameras to see is she at home or is she at the Airbnb, the duplex, and duplex.
Jesse?
Yeah. Order acquired.
Okay. It's so nice. And real quick, if you're new here, my name is Jesse Lynch. I run the hardest working real estate team in the game, and we're called To the Twin Cities. And this video is a collaboration between two of my channels, one of which is just my name, basically, and the other of which is called To the Twin Cities. To the Twin Cities is a real estate team. We are the hardest working real estate team, and really relocations is what we focus on, it's what we obsess about, and it's what we do better than anybody else. So if you're just discovering this video and this channel, go down the rabbit hole on the To the Twin Cities channel. It's really, really in-depth, really niche stuff that's just here as a resource for you, somebody who's relocating to the Twin Cities. And I don't care about views, right? I don't care about anything else. I'm not trying to be clickbaity or anything else. I'm trying to be helpful to you. A very small audience, and that's cool with me because it's completely out of the interest of being helpful. So go down that rabbit hole, check that out. If you're interested in working with us in a relocation, we would love to help. You can go to our website, tothetwincities.com, where we have a contact form that you can fill out in like 30 seconds or less. And then once you do, we'll get the show on the road and get everything headed in the right direction. And a couple more things. There's another resource called Welcome to the Twin Cities that we have. It's a podcast where we interview people who have relocated here from many different places throughout the country and the world. And so if you want to hear kind of other opinions and conversations that we've had with folks we've helped, that's really, really cool. So Welcome to the Twin Cities is that podcast. And then this video is a collaboration, again, between To the Twin Cities and this other channel, which is a newer channel for me, much more laid back. And it's kind of trying to be a video for anybody in the Twin Cities already or people who are interested in moving here. I'm diving into what I think are the coolest things about Minnesota. The coolest businesses, the coolest places, the drives, just pure vibe and kind of the people who are inspiring me to do cool things. So if you're new to either one of these, would love a subscribe to both or I guess one of them if you're only interested in one. And I'm not going to interrupt this video again with more of this kind of stuff. So thanks for watching and hope you continue to enjoy. Like I said before, all of this data is from a study by WalletHub. And primarily what they focused on were, it seems like 4 primary sections. Sort of financial stress, stress from work, which they do say is different than financial stress, and then familial stress and stress related to health. Obviously those are pretty big buckets that they're talking about. So we'll kind of dive in and expand on what those mean and how it translates to quality of life in Minnesota. So the TLDR of it is really, we like our jobs better, we sleep better, we generally feel better, and yeah, I think it's just easier to exist here. And so this first section is kind of about work and work-life balance. And I think the really strong economics of the Twin Cities, the fact that we have more Fortune 500 companies per capita than any other metro, and other sort of job and economy strong stats, I think that provides a level of financial comfort or, I don't know, just confidence in the future. And I think because of that, because of a strong job market, I think that people have good relationships with work. People aren't afraid to clock out for the day and not think about work, the whole time after they clock out. That said, I'm a bit of a workaholic. I really like owning a business. I really like running a business, and I think about it all the time. But Minnesota seems to have me beat as far as that goes. It's probably pretty obvious that it's well into the fall right now. Most of the trees have lost their leaves. We're past peak colors, but there's still some beautiful weather left. So again, in the spirit of this video, I'm gonna do maybe one of the last rides of the season. I think maybe do a couple more this weekend, but I think that's about it.
For you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
For why?
Just because I don't know. I saw a video of people doing it online, so I just wanted to do it too.
That's it. I just filmed that. Do you
Yeah,
mind if you're on my YouTube channel?
Really?
Yeah.
What is it?
To the Twin Cities.
Okay.
We like help people relocate here.
Oh, that's amazing. Here.
Sweet, sweet man. Thank you, thank you. Maybe you saw this because I was recording it randomly. I randomly hit record on this video, but a young man named Ethan just approached me and said, "Hey, here you go," handed me some flowers, and I was like, "Why? You know, why are you giving me flowers?" And he's like, "I just saw somebody doing it online to random people. I thought it was cool. I asked permission to include it, so you know, it's probably going to be in this video anyway, but just so cool and just speaks to how amazing Minnesota is." But the next main thing that I want to talk about, obviously different day by the way, naturally I'm wearing a completely different outfit, but the next thing that I want to talk about is just how you can use the beauties of the beauty of the outdoors, the natural beauty of the Twin Cities as a really good way to reset and kind of, you know, find some balance in life, because the outdoors is just at your fingertips all the time, zero friction to go somewhere beautiful. And even in the cities, there's just a bit more of a manageable pace. Minneapolis and St. Paul are both very chill compared to a lot of the other metros with similar populations. I think it's important to note that, little free library, it's important to note that the neighborhoods actually feel like neighborhoods here. I think for one, the relative affordability over time has lent itself to very established neighborhoods all over the city proper, right? Minneapolis and St. Paul, they're, you know, century-old neighborhoods, and they feel so established. And while the city definitely is the city, it's a large metropolitan area, there's really busy, kind of more hectic places, there's a lot of very happening places. There are so many like beautiful, quiet, calm corners that are really kind of dug in neighborhoods that are intended to feel that way. I also tend to think that the social scene, or kind of the social culture in Minnesota, is different than a lot of the rest of the country or other major metropolitan areas. I tend to think that there's more of a lean toward like cozier, you know, dinner with friends, smaller get-togethers, or kind of like going out to events than there is kind of the like clubbing, nightlife type of energy that you tend to find in a lot of other metros. And I think that's true from a pretty young age. I just don't think that kind of like jockeying for a position in terms of like social cred and things like that is nearly the priority in Minnesota as it is in so many other metros. I really don't know if there's any like data or stats to back this up, so apologize for that, but I tend to think that the social culture here is just much more rooted in like really good, deep friendships that last a really long time, and not nearly as much as climbing the social ladder and, you know, trying to get somewhere, right? I think there's less social usury, if that's a real thing, in Minnesota than a lot of other places, especially a lot of the places that we're helping people move here from. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the historical neutrality of Minnesota. Minnesota is not somewhere that people come to make it, right? People don't like move to the Twin Cities because like it's the coolest place to be. Eventually, people realize that it's a really, really good lifestyle, and that's just what they want out of life. Personally, I've been very turned off by certain places, certain metropolitan areas in the United States, from like visiting there on tour or something like that, where there are just places that people go, they move to, right? Because they think that it's the place to be, and they think that they'll move there and they'll get discovered or something like that and they'll make it. And then there's just this really disingenuine culture, this culture of people who are trying to be somebody that they're not. And I think you have to look pretty hard to find that in Minnesota. And I'm not going to say that there's nobody here who's kind of obsessed with that or is, you know, going to try to, you know, step on people to get to where they want to be. For sure, For sure that exists, but I think on a much smaller scale, and it's not a magnet for people who are, just trying to make it. And so I think it can't really be understated how important that is for mental health at really any age. And one thing that sort of lowers the stress of the people who live here, that will be a little bit at odds with some of the folks that we're helping here, is that people tend to stay here. So there's strong familial support, right? Generally speaking, a lot of people's families are here, or we see a lot of people actually, one person moves here and then a bunch more follow because life is good here. But that sort of people not relocating, family systems, family units generally are within reach of one another. That is part of why people are less stressed here. But if you're moving here and you're leaving your family behind, that's a thing that you have to consider. And so for some people, that rootedness is one of the things you're actually giving up by moving here. But usually we find that people are considering a move here for a reason. There are all sorts of reasons that they're considering it. Political, financial, obviously everything we're talking about here. They're trying to get that better life for them and maybe their descendants, or them and their partner, or just them. And you gotta start somewhere. And really quick, I just want to talk about kind of the other side of the coin of this video. I'm talking about how low stress it is to live in Minnesota. It is, statistically it is, and I think a lot of the people that we're helping are finding that, right? They're like, oh, actually, we are noticing that we feel less stress when we live in Minnesota. That said, I understand that there are people who are stressed, right? And I understand that financial stress, familial stress, health stress, like work stress, all of those things do exist in Minnesota. And I don't want to pretend like they don't at all. I have personally felt but probably all of those things, right? I for sure have felt financial stress. So I don't want to say like, oh yeah, just like everybody's super comfortable financially here. That's not the case, right? And I just want to make sure that I'm saying that. So if anybody's watching this who is feeling those things, that you're not feeling like, oh, well, I shouldn't be feeling that here, because that's not like normal to feel here. It's just that life in Minnesota is not completely impervious to these things, to these stressors. But I think the bright side is, the sort of silver lining is that the opportunity to lower your stress in Minnesota is statistically better than a lot of the rest of the country. So, all right, that's really all I wanted to say there, but let's get back to the video. A lot of people would be able to kind of naturally intuit that the financial stress side of things would be a pretty major factor for a lot of people, and for kind of how this all shakes out. Minnesota is very consistently in like the 5 least stressful states across all of these sort of financial indicators. And cost of living is not the cheapest in Minnesota. We're somewhere more in the middle typically. But cost of living is very stable and predictable, and that is more valuable than I think most people give it credit for. And there's actually kind of a collection of statistics that I saw not too long ago that I found really interesting and maybe somewhat telling. And it really showed that Minnesota has this really great balance of a high enough median income, not the highest in the country, but a high enough median income, and a one of the lowest sort of spreads between the wealthiest and the least wealthy. And I think that shows that it's not just a good place to be an employee, but a good place to be an employer. Obviously, there are a lot of things like food certainty, the consistency in sleep that are just huge for mental health, to lower stress levels. And I'm a big believer that I need my sleep, and I just do so much better with sleep, right? Obviously, That's not news, right? I think most people know that. But Minnesota is actually ranks second best out of the country, according to the WalletHub study, in people who get over 7 hours of sleep per night. And it's something around over 3/4 of Minnesota residents get over 7 hours of sleep on average a night. I think this one is a huge one and probably slightly underrated, or not necessarily something that people who live here are even considering. But the health and safety standpoint of Minnesota is top notch. For one, infrastructure, very, very solid. We have relatively high taxes, but you see that reflected all over the place. Our cities, our suburbs, they're really in great shape, generally speaking. Medical, healthcare in general, is world class. We have not only incredible, hospitals and medical clinics throughout the metro, we of course have the Mayo Clinic with a short drive, which is probably the best hospital in the world. And then of course, drinking water, fresh water. I believe we probably have some of the best drinking water in the country, and we also have an unbelievable amount of fresh water at our fingertips. 10,000 lakes, actually it's more than that, right? But there's water everywhere, and there's a visual representation of this water everywhere. A lot of the time, if I'm traveling to another state or another country, the thing that I miss the most is fresh water, visible fresh water. I will say ocean water kind of does the trick, but visible fresh water, there's just something in my brain that says, that's good. That is a good thing to see. I miss trees, I miss green grass. Again, all of those are representations of like a thriving ecosystem to me. And so when I go somewhere that is without that, which is a lot of the country, by the way, I really yearn for it. And then of course there's this idea of Minnesota nice. You can look online, you can find people who are refuting it, saying that it's just passive aggressive. It's just kind of like a non-confrontational, but not actually nice. But I disagree with that completely. I've been all over the country. I've been to many different countries, and I think the kindness that exists in small moments in Minnesota is undeniable. And I think you would be hard pressed to find that kindness on a broad scale just about anywhere. And people aren't just nice here. People genuinely look out for each other here. I think there's like a bit of a cliche with that, like community and neighborhood. It can feel like a bit nonsensical, or it can feel like it's just like a buzzword, right? Community. I think you will find truly there are a lot of communities that are really focused on community. I'm actually in Northfield right now, and one time, by accident by the way, I was helping some folks move here, and Northfield does something where they like feed Northfield. And on this main street, which, sorry, is blown out right now, but on this main street, they have massive amounts of dining tables set up for like a community dinner. And it's not just these small towns. Northfield is about 45 minutes from downtown Minneapolis. It's the smaller communities. I live in St. Paul, I live in Highland Park. Super, super tight knit. My neighborhood, my street, we all know each other. We do National Night Out. Neighborhoods in Minneapolis proper, you will find a sense of community at any one of these places. It's just gonna feel a little bit different from place to place. And then of course there's the psychological impact that the winter has upon a person. Not just the fact that you enjoy spring, summer, fall, but it rewires your brain in the winter. There's a level of acceptance that this is what it is right now, right? That this is what life looks like, that the days are shorter, that it's a bit darker, that it's cold outside, that you have to shovel the snow or you have to remove the snow at the very least, and that you're gonna be a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that that is very, very good for a person, and not just one individual person, but society, a culture on the whole. And by now, basically everybody has heard of the idea of cold plunges and ice baths and sort of the benefit that they bring. I really think that once you can tolerate it, right? Once you build up the ability to be in cold weather and just accept it, and obviously in a safe way, right? Don't get hypothermia. By the way, I had basically pre-hypothermia on a motorcycle ride that I did not too long ago. There's a video on the Jesse Lynch channel about that. It was very cold, so not that kind of cold, but a brief 5-minute outside in the middle of the winter without a coat on, right? Picking up snow, throwing snowballs without a coat on, without gloves on. Just little brief tastes of it. I think there's something really, really good for the mental health. And then there's something about the winter that I think, while it doesn't inherently make people more neighborly, that would be a bit of an embellishment, it allows for people to be more neighborly. It provides opportunities to extend favors, to just be slightly more communal, slightly more intimate with your neighbors, not in that way, sort of as a friendship kind of way. You don't just have people over for a bonfire, or you don't just have a block party. You're going to have to invite people in. You're going to have small dinner parties. Well, I guess it's as small or big as your house can provide, but without a doubt, there's a tighter knit feeling there than a party, right? Than a larger scale party. And the reality is, I think once you just accept the weather for what it is, you accept the climate for what the climate truly is, I think everything gets better. You lean into the shorter days of the winter, the colder days, you lean into cozy feelings and kind of creating your world around some of that. And then in the summer, you have these unbelievable, beautiful long days where the sun rises at 6 and sets at 9. It's pretty remarkable. And I think just knowing that that's waiting for you in the winter makes everything just so much better. So lean into it. And don't even get me started on traffic. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about it. Traffic in the Twin Cities is just so much less of a consideration than so many major metropolitan areas. And Minnesota in general has way shorter commute times than the average of the United States. A very common conversation that we're having with people in the first sit down or first Zoom call discussing their relocation is around commute times. And a lot of folks have to kind of rework what they think is a normal commute time. We've had people say, well, I have a 2-hour commute right now, so let's keep it under 2 hours. And we have to tell them that would get you to Duluth, right? That would get you to like a vacation destination in the Twin Cities. I'm in Red Wing right now. That would get you an hour past Red Wing. Nobody would really do that, right? There is no need. You're moving to the Twin Cities to improve your life. So don't take on a 2-hour drive because it's literally pointless. And I think anybody who does a long commute every day, 3 out of 5 days a week, something like that, you know the difference between a long car ride, a long drive, and that same thing, right? I love a long car ride, but what I don't love is the same drive over and over again to get to work. Yeah, you get it. All right, I know that this frame is not particularly well exposed for me being the subject of the video, but I am not the subject of the video, am I? Minnesota is very much the subject of this video, and so let's talk about it. First of all, this sunset is unbelievable. We're on the way back to St. Paul from Red Wing, just about wrapping up this video. Got a couple more things to talk about, and this feels like a good spot to do it. So the mental health, I suppose, in Minnesota ranks really highly across the national level. And I'm sure a lot of what we talked about already lends to why that is. But there's also sort of infrastructure, healthcare, that relates to mental health that is extremely robust in Minnesota. And Minnesota ranks among the highest states as far as access to mental health care is concerned. So I think you wrap that up with what I think is a culture that actually promotes good mental health. My God, by the way, it is so cool. And this road is so empty. It's really, really nice. But you combine those two, or all of that really, and I think you get a very stable or net positive as far as mental health is concerned. Oscar's been a champ. I don't know if you've noticed that. Oscar has been an absolute champ in this video. He's 9.5 months old, and he's just doing so good. Okay, let's keep going. And of course, mental health is not perfect in Minnesota. It's not perfect in the Twin Cities. It's not perfect anywhere. But you can tell at a state level, at a, city level in general, even an employer level, and that could be from pressures, some social pressures and things like that, but there is a real attention being put on mental health, and some of it almost feels akin to kind of like Scandinavian, philosophies on mental health, and as it pertains to work and school, and yeah, again, one more time, check that out. Not bad. So yeah, it's cold in Minnesota about a third of the year. Some people might say half the year. I would say probably more a quarter of the year, because I really like the shoulder seasons, and I don't find them particularly uncomfortable at all. I find them somewhat refreshing. But the cold, I believe, is one of the biggest contributors to actually why it's really great. I'll make another video on this channel about what people get wrong, that's Oscar, what people get wrong about winter in Minnesota. So, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to that. But ultimately what I think it comes down to is a sort of a two-part concoction that makes Minnesota low stress. The first of which is the winter and the cold, generally speaking, humbles you. And it also kind of forces you to accept the things that cannot be changed, right? And then I think there's the other half of things, which is that it's actually extremely low friction to get anything done here and to spend your days how you want to spend them. So you have the ability to live your life and do most anything that you want in any given day. It's like, go ahead. There's very little friction. There's very little cost of entry to enjoy a day in Minnesota, can enjoy any particular day in Minnesota. And then to the extent that there are things that you can't do, or there are days where you can't enjoy things or spend the day exactly how you want to do, I think you're taught, and there's this long history of a culture that has basically said, hey, yeah, look, sometimes it's winter, sometimes you can't just do whatever you want. And I think those two things combine really make for a sort of like peaceful populace and a calm sense of place. Cool. See you in the next one. Bye.